Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Today we're looking at the 2026 governor's elections map for the 2026 midterms. And if you saw my Senate video that I did, this one's going to be very similar. I'm going to go through every single governor's race and give the most updated polling average, and if that's not there, the most recent poll in each of these races, and assign it to the respective candidate, the Democrat, Republican, or independent candidate, depending on each race, and then go through the map and see ultimately how the map ends up looking. So right now there are 36 governor's races up in 2026. Democrats currently hold 6 that are not up. Republicans hold 8 that are not up. So obviously a huge majority of governor's races are up in 2026. And let's start and go through the races. We're going to go to the state of Oregon first. Oregon, this is the Democrat Governor Tina Kotek on the Democratic side. The Republican side, there are several candidates running. Kristen Drazen, the Republican nominee from 2022, seems to be the most likely candidate again for this time around. The most recent poll, with the rankings being solid and likely Democratic, comes from Kotek versus Drazen from the FM3 research poll from January to February, showing it around a 5-point lead for Kotek versus Drazen, with 15% still undecided. So what does that mean? That means Oregon starts out at 5 points, which, using the ratings of 1 and under being tilt, 1 to 5 being lean, 5 to 15 being likely, and 15 up being safe, we're going to go and round up and give it likely for the Democrat Tina Kotek. Now we're going to go to the state of California. California, obviously a very interesting race underway here in its open primary. Democrat Governor Gavin Newsom is term limited and cannot seek a third term. As for the candidates, there are several Democratic and Republican candidates in the race: Xavier Becerra, Matt Mahan, Katie Porter, Tom Steyer, Antonio Villaraigosa as the main ones. The Republican side, Chad Bianco and Steve Hilton are the main Republicans in this race. As for the polling, shows a very close race right now. Steve Hilton, the Republican, is currently leading in this race as of now. The most recent poll shows Hilton at 18, Xavier Becerra at 18. So it looks like it's heading for a general election of a Republican and a Democrat possibly. As for that, though, solid Democrat really across the board. Race to the White House has it as likely. Full results, we're still going to have to wait and see, but it shows also general election matchups as well, and other candidates like Kamala Harris and stuff. So it's obviously too early to say for sure how it's ultimately going to go until we get to the general election. But the polling averages right now does show Steve Hilton nearly leading by a lean Republican. So for the sake of the video, going exactly how it says, we're just going what the numbers say and putting California as lean Republican. Now again, you're going to see this, you're going to say that's not happening, Republicans are not winning California. And again, I agree with you, but until we get to the primary where the two candidates that advance, there's going to be at least one Democrat in all likelihood, maybe even two. We'll go from there in future videos, but for this video of the current primary polling field, the Republican Steve Hilton is leading in the polling average, and California is there's lean Republican in this video, but certainly something not used to seeing. Now we can look at the state of Hawaii. This is Democratic governor, I believe it is Josh Green is the Democratic governor, and he is eligible to seek re-election, and he has declared that he is doing so. On the Republican side, Gary Corderi is the Republican candidate in this race. No polling yet, but solid Democrat across the board. In Hawaii, no surprise, Hawaii goes safe blue. The state of Alaska, Alaska's got an interesting governor's race going on as well, just like with the Senate race. The Republican incumbent Mike Dunleavy is term limited, and similar to California, the primary, or there's a lot of candidates running in the primary that has to sort of shake itself out first. Among the candidates, the Republican candidates, there's Click Bishop, Dave Bronson, Nancy Dahlstrom, there's Bernadette Wilson. There's a lot of Republicans running. The Democrats, the most notable candidate running is Tom Begich. As for the primary election right now, the most recent poll from Alaska Survey Research shows Begich at 19, and the Republican Bernadette Wilson behind him at 14%, so about a lead of 5 points for the Democrat. For the general election, there's one poll of Begich versus Bishop versus Bronson versus Bernadette Wilson, and it shows Begich up around 16 points or so, if not more, even 18 points over the Republican candidates. But sort of similar to California, we're going to go with the same rules here. Alaska, there's usually a primary election that whittles the field down to, I think it's 3 candidates or 4 candidates. I believe it's 3, but still, we're going to wait for that to unfold. So in a future video, it'll look different. But for now, Begich is at 19, Wilson's at 14. That is a 5-point lead for the Democrat. So for the purposes of today's video, Alaska's governor's race goes as likely Democratic as of right now. Next, we're going to go to the state of Idaho and then work our way down. We're going to go there, and this is going to be a race that's not really going to be too competitive as really expected. This is Republican incumbent Brad Little. He is running again for re-election. On the Democratic side, 4 Democrats are currently running in this race, but the general election, no polling done, but all safe for the Republican. No surprise, Idaho goes safe red. Now, Nevada, that's certainly not going to be the case. Nevada is going to be one of the closest governor's races in all of the United States. This is Republican incumbent Joe Lombardo, who won a very close election in 2022, defeating Democrat Governor Steve Sisolak by 1.5%, flipping the race from blue to red. So a very close race in terms of 2026. Joe Lombardo will be the Republican nominee as the governor once again. On the Democratic side, several Democrats are running, but the Nevada Attorney General Aaron Ford is going to be the Democratic nominee. He's the most likely candidate in the race. He's raking up all the endorsements in the race as well. For the general election, most of the prediction sites do give a very slight lean to Joe Lombardo over Aaron Ford right now, with the average of averages on the Wikipedia being 1.5% lead for Joe Lombardo. Race to the White House has Lombardo up 2.6. Lombardo is 0.5 for Real Clear Politics. 1.5% lead for Lombardo in this one, including the most recent poll, having Lombardo up by 1 point over Aaron Ford. It's going to be a super close race in this governor's race in Nevada, without a doubt. Certainly going to come down to the wire, but when everything is said and done, based on this video and the parameters of this video, Nevada starts out as lean for the Republicans. Okay, so that's the state of Nevada. Next, we're going to go to the state of Arizona. Arizona is a really interesting governor's race as well, as this governor's race in 2022 was very, very close. So this is Democratic Governor Katie Hobbs. And again, as I mentioned, in 2022, she won this race against the Republican Carrie Lake by only 0.67% of the vote. So it was incredibly, incredibly close in that matchup. On the Republican side, U.S. Representatives Andy Biggs and David Schweiker are now fighting out the Republican primary, with Biggs being the likely opponent when everything is said and done for the general election. As for this race, it's currently split among the predictors of toss-up or lean Democrat, but for the polling averages, Katie Hobbs has a very large lead starting out in this race, with Race to the White House having her up about 9.5% over Biggs, with Real Clear Politics having her up over Biggs with 5.4%. When you look at these actual numbers here, it's 45.9, 38.5, 15.5% undecided, so there's still certainly a good amount of support left for grabs here, but Katie Hobbs off to an early lead in this race. 7.4%, the average of the two. This would be a likely Democratic win for the Democrats, and it would put Arizona as likely blue. Okay, so with that, now we can look at the neighboring state of New Mexico. New Mexico is an open governor's race as well. In 2026, the Democratic incumbent governor, Michelle Lujan Grisham, is ineligible to seek a third term, and it's a competitive Democratic primary underway between Deb Haaland and Sam Bregman. Bregman notably being the father of baseball player Alex Bregman, which is kind of interesting. In terms of this Democratic primary, the polling data shows Deb Haaland leading in pretty much every single poll, so she'll probably end up being the Democratic candidate, but again, we'll have to wait and see. On the Republican side, Mayor of Rio Rancho, Greg Hull, seems to be the most notable Republican candidate in this race. He is led in both of the primary polls. For the general election, there's been no general election polls as of yet, but the predictions have it as likely Democrat or lean Democrat. Going with the consensus on this one, in my own personal rankings, New Mexico starts out as lean for the Democrats. We can go up to Colorado, neighboring Colorado, where this is also an open governor's race, as Jared Polis, the incumbent governor, is term limited and cannot seek a third term. So this race is a Democratic primary race of Michael Bennet, the U.S. Senator, versus Phil Weiser, the Attorney General, and what's shaping up to be a very interesting race. There's only been one poll thus far from back in June that showed Bennett leading Weiser 53-22. So I'd expect Michael Bennet will be the Democratic nominee, but again, we'll have to wait and see. On the Republican side, there are two notable Republicans running in Barbara Kirkmeyer and Scott Bottoms, and Victor Marx is also in the race as well. In terms of who's going to win this one, we'll have to wait and see. I think it'll probably be Barbara Kirkmeyer, but again, we'll have to wait and see how it ultimately all shakes out. As for the general, solid Democrat from 3 out of the 4 rankings, no polling as of now. I'd put Colorado to start out in solid Democrat as well. Next, we can go to the neighboring state of Wyoming. This one should not be really too difficult. Incumbent Governor Mark Gordon is ineligible for the third term, so it's an open race Brett Bien, Eric Barlow, and Megan Degenfelder are fighting out in the Republican primary. On the Democratic side, there's one candidate, Gabriel Green. No polling done yet, but solid Republican across the board. No surprise there. We can put Wyoming into the safe Republican category. As soon as the site loads up, here we go. Safe Republican in Wyoming, No surprises there. We'll go next door to South Dakota. South Dakota, this is, I believe, our Republican incumbent governor, Larry Roden, who is running for another term. Now, there is some interesting things going underway here on the Republican side. The primary elections are going to be held on June 2nd. If no candidate receives over 35% in the primary, a runoff election will take place on July 28th. The incumbent Republican Larry Roden, who ascended to the office of governor after Kristi Noem's resigned to become Secretary of Homeland Security, Roden is running for a re-election, but he's facing off against Dusty Johnson, a U.S. representative, John Hanson, the Speaker of the South Dakota House of Representatives, and Toby Doden as well. And this is actually a very interesting Republican primary underway here, as in the most recent poll from the Mason-Dixon polling strategy, Johnson was at 34%, Jansen 18%, Doden 17%. The governor, Larry Roden, is only at 17% as well, with 14% undecided. So it's very possible Dusty Johnson wins this outright and gets above 15 or 35%, but it's a very interesting primary underway here. The Emerson poll from back in March also showed it with Johnson in first, Roden, Jansen, and Doden kind of dividing up the vote from there. So it's very, very interesting to see how that'll play out. On the Democratic side, Daniel Allers is the only Democratic candidate in the race. Solid Republican from 3 out of the 4 rankings here. Not really much of a surprise at the general election level. South Dakota goes as solid Republican. Next, we can go to the state of Nebraska. Nebraska, interesting Senate race underway. In this race, on the governor's side of things, incumbent Governor Jim Pillen is running for another term. The Democratic side, you have Larry Marvin and Lynn Waltz, the former state senator and nominee for lieutenant governor in 2018. In terms of who ends up winning, again, we'll have to wait and see, but probably be Lynn Waltz is the way it's currently shaping up. Someone that has expressed interest is Brett Lindstrom, the former state senator and Republican candidate for the 2nd District for a little bit in 2026 before ultimately ending that bid, has expressed a independent potential candidacy as well. It is listed as solid Republican across the board, though Jim Pillen versus Lynn Waltz, there is a poll from that from the beginning of April from the Democratic Public Policy Polling, showing it a 5-point lead for Pillen versus Waltz. So for this race, we're going to start Nebraska out as likely Republican due to that poll. Next, we can go to the state of Kansas. Kansas is going to be a potential flip to watch for, as incumbent Democrat Governor Laura Kelly is term limited and cannot seek another term. 3 Democrats are running, in Ethan Corson, Cindy Hochler, and Marty Turley, with Ethan Corson getting the endorsement of Laura Kelly and the Lieutenant Governor David Toland. So that's very significant there, as well as Kathleen Seboulis, the former governor of Kansas from 2003 and 2009, and serving in the Obama administration as well. But the polling data from Public Policy Polling from back in January, which was sponsored by Holscher's campaign, showed Holscher leading 33-9, with still 58% undecided. On the Republican side, really take your pick at all the candidates running. There's the Secretary of State Scott Schwab, Vicki Schmidt is running as well, Charlotte O'Hara, Ty Masterson, Jeff Collier. So many candidates are running in this race. Anyone's guess for the Republican primary right now. No polls, but lean Republican or tilt Republican in 3 out of the 4. Toss-up listed as 1. For this ranking for Kansas, we're going to give it lean Republican as a flip from blue to red, but really anyone's guess at the current point in time. Next, we can go to the state of Oklahoma. Oklahoma shouldn't be too shocking. This is usually a very Republican state. The incumbent governor, Kevin Stitt, is term limited and cannot seek another term. There are a lot of Republicans running, including Genter Drummond, the Attorney General. Chip Keating is running. Mike Mazzei is running. Charles McCall is running. Jake Merrick is running as well. Lots of candidates are running in this race. In terms of the polling data thus far, Genter Drummond seems to be the leading candidate as of the most recent poll from January at 36%. Charles McCall was in second place at 14%. Chip Keating and Mike Mazzei each having 13%. Jake Merrick at 5%, but still 19% undecided. On the Democratic side, the 2 most notable Democrats running, Cindy Munson and Connie Johnson. Again, no clear indicator who's the leader in that field, but we'll have to wait and see how that goes. Solid Republican from most of the rankings, though. Oklahoma, not really much of a surprise, but we can officially put it as a safe Republican governor's race. Again, I'm sorry, I don't know why the map is loading in so slowly, but Oklahoma we can make safe red. Next, we can go to the state of Texas, where this governor's race, not sure how competitive it's going to be, but it's going to get a lot of attention. The incumbent Republican governor, Greg Abbott, who is running for another term, he is running in this race, and he'll be facing off against the Democrat Gina Hinojosa, who just won the Democratic primary. As for the general election, it's actually listed as solid or safe Republican from 3 out of the 4 prediction sites. As for the polling, though, there's no polling average as of yet, but the most recent poll from Slingshot Strategies, a Democratic pollster that's sponsored by the Texas Public Opinion Research, has it as a 5-point race for Greg Abbott versus Gina Hinojosa. So it could be competitive, may end up not being competitive, we'll have to wait and see, but the most recent poll has it listed as a likely Republican state. Next, we can go to the neighboring state of Arkansas. Arkansas, this one should not take too long. This is Republican incumbent Sarah Huckabee Sanders. She'll be facing off against Democrat Frederick Love. As for the general election, no poll yet, but solid Republican across all the rankings. Arkansas goes safe red. Now, the next one is the state of Iowa. Iowa is a fascinating governor's race. This is Republican incumbent Kim Reynolds. She's term limited, or not term limited, but declined to seek a third term. U.S. Representative Randy Feenstra of the 4th District will be the Republican nominee in all likelihood. He'll be facing off against Democratic nominee, Iowa Auditor of State, Rob Sand. Now, Rob Sand is someone that's seen as a very special Democrat candidate in the state. He's currently the only statewide elected Democrat in the state of Iowa, and he is making this race very, very competitive. And according to the rankings that have lean Republican for 2, tilt Democrat for 1, toss up for Cook Politico, it's sort of all over the place. The most recent poll came from Echelon Insights. Rob Sand's at 51. Randy Feenstra is at 39. That is a 12%, or I believe 12% lead for Rob Sand over Randy Feenstra. So in the state of Iowa, that usually votes very reliably Republican, based on the most recent poll, we can actually put Iowa as likely Democratic in this race. And Rob Sand, Randy Feenstra, this is one that I absolutely cannot wait to keep watching, because this is a very fascinating race underway in Iowa. Next, we can go north to the state of Minnesota, where Minnesota, this is the current Democrat governor, Tim Walz. He's not running for another term, but the Democrats have an even stronger candidate in U.S. Senator Amy Klobuchar. She'll be the Democratic candidate. She'll be the nominee. Lots of Republicans are running. In the primary, Mike Lindell, Lisa DeMuth, Peggy Bennett are probably the most notable in terms of name ID. As for the polling, the only poll showed that Mike Lindell was leading in that one, though the Republican caucus straw results had Lisa DeMuth leading over Kendall Qualls and Mike Lindell. We'll have to wait and see how that ultimately goes. Likely to solid Democrat across the board, though. 20-point lead for Klobuchar versus Bennett. Roughly about a, let's see here, about 14-point lead or so, or 13-point lead for Klobuchar versus Lisa DeMuth against Mike Lindell. Roughly about a 22-point lead. So it's really take your pick, depending on which candidate. Klobuchar versus Kendall Qualls, about a 16-point lead. Lisa DeMuth was the leading on the caucus straw results, so if we go off of that one, it would be roughly about a 13-point win for Klobuchar, so we'll put Minnesota as likely Democratic, but again, if it's Mike Lindell, this is a safe Democratic win all day, and depending on how the general election goes, maybe a safe Democratic win for Klobuchar anyway. Next, we can look here at the state of Wisconsin. Wisconsin is going to be an interesting race with Democratic Governor Tony Evers term limited. The Republicans are going to be nominating U.S. Representative Tom Tiffany. The Democrats, very competitive primary underway here. Former Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes is running. David Crowley, Joel Brennan are running. Francesca Hong, a state representative that's been surging a lot in popularity recently, is running. Incumbent Lieutenant Governor Sarah Rodriguez is running. And the polls are very, very tight. The most recent poll from Marquette University has Hong leading in this race by only about 3% with a ton of undecided votes, so we're going to have to wait and see how that all goes. As for the general, it's completely listed as a toss-up. Mandela Barnes versus Tom Tiffany, Barnes is leading. Crowley versus Tiffany, Crowley's leading. Rodriguez versus Tiffany, we have Rodriguez ahead. But for Francesca Hong versus Tom Tiffany, from the TIPP Insights poll, Tom Tiffany's leading by about 3 points in that matchup. So for this video, we're going to put Wisconsin as the leading candidate is Francesca Hong in the most recent Democratic primary poll. We'll put Wisconsin as lean Republican, but this is a really, really interesting one. Next, we're going to go to the state of Illinois, as this one should not take all that long. This is the Democratic Governor, J.B. Pritzker. He's running again for another term. He'll be facing off against Darren Bailey, who I believe he faced off against in 2022. And the only recent poll from November showed it a 20-point win. No surprise here, J.B. Pritzker, safe Democratic win in the state of Illinois. Now we get to go to the state of Michigan, and what is honestly probably the most fascinating race in the country due to the fact that Democratic Mayor Mike Duggan is running for governor as an independent, and that's really throwing a big wrench in how this election is shaping up to go. Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson seems to be leading the Democratic primary. On the Republican side, U.S. Representative John James has been seen as the respective favorite for a while now, though Perry Johnson, the 2024 presidential candidate, in the recent polling averages is putting up a pretty close fight. James is only up by about 1.5% in the most recent average. As for the general election, it's really split right now. Race to the White House average, Benson's leading James by 2.5%, 33 to 30.5, 21.6. As for real core politics, James is up 36, 32.5 to 20.5. An average of the two. John James is leading by 0.5%. So in this video, in the Senate video, I went for this part, the average of the averages, as the tiebreaker for any differences here. So for this video, for Michigan, I'm going to be putting the governor's race as tilt for the Republicans, but what a absolutely close governor's race underway in the state of Michigan. Next, we're going to go to the state of Ohio, where Ohio, there's a theme this year. All the Midwestern states seem to have very competitive governor elections. The primary just took place as of the time recording this video a few days ago. Vivek Ramaswamy is the Republican candidate. Amy Acton is the Democrat candidate. It's listed as favored for the Republicans at the prediction side of things. As for the average across all the polling averages, Vivek Ramaswamy is leading in three out of the four, with an average of averages. Vivek Ramaswamy is at 47.5, Amy Acton at 45.8, Ramaswamy's up 1.7%. So one of the nation's closest and most interesting governor's races in the country, Vivek Ramaswamy is narrowly favored in the lean Republican category as of right now, as of this polling video. Next, we can go to the state of Tennessee. We're going to go south and just work our way up here. Tennessee, this is Republican U.S. Senator Marsha Blackburn. She's running to succeed the Republican Governor Bill Lee, who is term limited. On the Democratic side, there are 4 Democrats currently running. As for the polls, Marsha Blackburn is leading by over 20 points against Jerry Green, and John Rose is leading against Jerry Green as well by a similar margin. Solid Republican across the board here. We have Marsha Blackburn running safe margin. We can go to the state of Alabama, which is shaping up to be a little bit interesting as the Republican Governor Kay Ivey is term limited, but U.S. Senator Tommy Tuberville is running for this race in a governor's matchup of U.S. Senator Doug Jones, or former U.S. Senator Doug Jones, a rematch of the Senate election from 2020. As for the general election, Tuberville versus Doug Jones, the only poll that's been taken from Signal from November shows it around a 20-point victory for Tommy Tuberville, so we can put Alabama in safe for the Republicans. Next, we can go to the state of Florida. Florida, obviously, if you're familiar, this is Republican Governor Ron DeSantis. He is term limited and cannot seek another term. On the Republican side, there are a lot of candidates in the race, the most notable being U.S. Representative Byron Donalds of the 19th District. He has the endorsement of President Trump, and he has a clear lead over the rest of this Republican primary field at 54% in his most recent campaign sponsored poll. On the Democratic side, 2 Democrats are running in David Jolly and Jerry Demings. The polling on this one shows a lot of undecided voters, but David Jolly is leading over Jerry Demings 21-10 in the most recent poll, so we're going to go with David Jolly as the candidate. Solid Republican from 3 out of the 4 rankings, though the most recent poll, Stetson University, Donalds, Jerry Demings, only a 4-point lead for Byron Donalds, but in that Stetson University poll of Donalds versus Jolly, it's a 7-point lead for Byron Donalds, more in line with what you'd really expect for Florida. So for the Florida governor's race, it goes in the likely Republican category. Now we're going to come to the state of Georgia, which Georgia, I've said this a few times in terms of competitiveness, but I think this may be the most competitive governor's race in the country. Brian Kemp, the current governor of Georgia, is term limited. On the Republican side, a completely toss-up Republican primary is underway here between Burt Jones, the lieutenant governor, Rick Jackson, the healthcare executive, Chris Carr, the attorney general, and Brad Raffensperger, the secretary of state. Look at these numbers here. Rick Jackson is leading over Burt Jones by roughly about 3 points. The political outsider really coming out of nowhere a few months into the campaign, February 3rd, and his presence immediately has shifted this race where he is the current favorite. As of right now, about a 3-point lead. Still a ton of undecided vote left. On the Democratic side, several candidates are running as well, though former Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms seems to be the very overwhelming favorite at this current time, leading by about 31.8% in this race. As for the general election, toss-up from 2 out of the 4 rankings, tilt R for one, tilt Democrat for the other, and the poll from Echelon Insights shows Rick Jackson versus Keisha Lance Bottoms. Look at this, Lance Bottoms at 49, Rick Jackson at 43 a 6-point lead in this race. So we can actually give the Georgia governor's race to the Democrats by a likely Democratic margin. Certainly a very interesting governor's race shaping up in Georgia. Next, we can go to South Carolina, where you want to talk about competitive Republican primaries. With the current governor, Henry McMaster, term limited, a very competitive primary is underway between Pamela Evett, Josh Kimbrell, Nancy Mace, Ralph Norman, and Alan Wilson on the Republican side. The polling for this Republican primary, Nancy Mace is leading across all the averages by 1.7% in this very, very close race. Absolutely crazy down to the wire how close that one is. On the Democratic side, Jermaine Johnson is running in this race with William Mullins and Billy Webster. Only poll has Jermaine Johnson up by a considerable amount, likely going to be the Democratic candidate. No polling for the general, but solid Republican rankings across the board. And that's not really too much of a surprise in South Carolina. We can officially add South Carolina to the Republican side as safe for the Republicans. Now heading into the East Coast and the Northeast for the United States to finish off this video, we can go to the state of Maryland. This is Democratic Governor Wes Moore, someone that's seen as a potential rising star in the Democratic Party for 2028 and 2032. Wes Moore will be the nominee again. On the Democratic side, the Republicans, there are a bunch of candidates running. Currently no polling data as of now for who's going to win, so we're going to have to wait and see how that primary ultimately shakes out, but tons of candidates running in Maryland. As for the general, though, solid Democrat really across the board in this race. Only Larry Hogan can make Maryland competitive, it seems, at the governor level. Safe Democrat in Maryland. Pennsylvania, this is Democrat Governor Josh Shapiro. Like what Wes Moore, he's also someone that is looking to be a possible 2028 candidate. Shapiro will be taking on Republican nominee Stacey Garrity, both presumptive nominees, but it's probably going to be this matchup, Shapiro versus Garrity. As for the general election, it's either a likely or solid ranking, but we have some polling averages in this race, and Josh Shapiro is leading by 20.3% against Stacey Garrity. So despite Stacey Garrity being arguably a stronger candidate than Doug Mastriano, Shapiro starts out with an even larger lead over Garrity than the final results of that governor's race. So Pennsylvania starts out as solid for the Democrats. We can look at the state of New York. Democratic Governor Kathy Hochul. At one time, this race looked like it could be very competitive, but Hochul is going to be the Democratic candidate once again. The Republican side, Bruce Blakeman, Nassau County Executive, will be the candidate for the Republicans. And as for the general election, the polling averages show Kathy Hochul leading 14.5% across the average of the averages, 14.5%, just barely enough to put New York as likely Democrat, but very close to being a safe Democratic state. Now we can finish off with the states in New England. We can look at the state of Connecticut. Democrat Governor Ned Lamont is running again on the Democratic side. On the Republican side, three candidates in Aaron Stewart, Betsy McGough, and Ryan Fazio. In terms of the polling on this one, Aaron Stewart, the only poll, has a lead in this race, it seems, for Ned Lamont versus Aaron Stewart. On Message has it back in August, an 8-point lead for Ned Lamont. Connecticut's governor's races do seem to be a lot more competitive than their presidential ones, so we'll put Connecticut as likely for the Democrats. Rhode Island, one of the more Democratic states in the United States, but its governor's election is very interesting as the incumbent Democrat governor, Dan McKee, is being primary challenged by Helena Foulkes, the former CVS executive. She entered the bid back in September, and the polling data shows Helena Foulkes leading Dan McKee and Gregory Stevens by a very large amount at 19.7% in this Democratic primary. So the incumbent governor certainly seems to be in danger of potentially losing this primary. On the Republican side, three candidates, including Aaron Guckian, Elaine Polino, Robert Raimondo as well. As for the general, solid Democrat across the board. For Dan McKee, Aaron Gluckman, and Ken Block, McKee holds about a 13-point lead. For Helena Foulkes versus Aaron Gluckman, it's an over 16-point lead in that race. So with Foulkes looking like she's going to win the Democratic primary, Rhode Island can officially go as safe Democratic. Next, we can go to the state of the state of Massachusetts. This is Democrat Governor Maura Healey. She will be obviously the incumbent governor running again. The Republican primary has whittled down to two candidates, and Michael Minogue, the former CEO of Biomed, and Brian Shortsleeve. Following the Republican convention, it looks very likely that Mike Minogue is going to be the Republican candidate in advance of the general election to take on Maura Healey. And in the most recent poll, there's no polling average with solid Democrat across the board. Most recent poll from the University of New Hampshire, Healey is leading Mike Minogue by roughly about 20 points, which will put the state of Massachusetts into the safe Democratic category. Next, we can go to the state of Vermont. Vermont's an interesting race as it's held by a Republican incumbent governor Phil Scott, much more of a liberal Republican. Two Democrats are currently running, Amanda Jano and Allie Richards. Most recently, very recently, I believe today or even a few days ago, it was announced that Charity Clark, the Vermont Attorney General, is not running. She's running for re-election. That could be an indicator that Phil Scott may be running for re-election again. The rankings vary from solid Republican, likely Republican, and lean Republican. 2 out of the 4 are solid, but 1 is likely and 1 is lean. No polling data in this race as of now, but if Phil Scott runs, he should win by a safe Republican margin, so I'm going to leave it as safe Republican until things change there. Only 2 states left, New Hampshire and Maine. We're going to go to the Granite State, where incumbent Republican Governor Kelly Ayotte is not announced if she'll be running again or not, but it looks like she probably will. This is only her first term. She'll be facing off against Cindy Warmington, the Democratic candidate in 2024, the runner-up to fellow Democrat Joyce Craig. She'll be the candidate this time around. The rankings are mixed between likely Republican, solid Republican, and tilt Republican. The most recent poll for Ayotte versus Warmington, the UNH poll from April 17th to 21st of 2021, has Ayotte leading Warmington by about 8 points in that race. That would put New Hampshire as a likely Republican state. Next, we can go to the state of Maine, where there are 2 competitive primaries underway here as well to succeed term-limited Governor Janet Mills. On this side, Shenna Bellows, Troy Jackson, Angus King, Hannah Pingree, and Nirav Shah are all running in this race. Currently, the most recent poll, Nirav Shah, the Democrat candidate in the Impact Research poll, is leading at 31% over the rest of the field by at least 10%. So it looks like Nirav Shah will be the Democratic candidate. On the Republican side, several candidates are running, including Jonathan Bush, Robert Charles, David Jones, Garrett Mason. In terms of the polling for this one, it's definitely more up for grabs, but Robert Charles seems to be leading by a pretty considerable amount, so maybe it's not really so far up for grabs. Still 16% undecided. Robert Charles seems to be the likely Republican candidate in this one. No polling data yet, but 2 out of the 4 rankings have it as likely Democratic. 1 has it lean, 1 has it tilt. Going off the same logic as New Hampshire, we're going to put it as likely for the Democrats. So with that said, based on the current polling averages and most recent polls in every single state on the governor map, we have a very interesting looking map. Republicans are favored to win 27 governor's races. Democrats are favored to win 23, with some very interesting states, Nevada, California, Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio, and Kansas being red. And we have Alaska, Arizona, Iowa, and Georgia being blue. Very interesting map. I doubt it'll end up this way in November of 2026, but I'm interested to hear what you think. Leave all your thoughts in the comment section down below. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to hit like and subscribe if you did, and hope to see you in a future video.